Welcome to Section 2, Unit 3, Gender-Responsive Schools and Management System. This section has been designed for administrators. By the end of this unit, you should be able to define what a gender-responsive school is, articulate what makes a school gender-responsive and why that promotes gender equality in education, articulate the responsibilities of management and teachers in making a school gender responsive, assess the level of gender equality in school leadership, describe key factors in enhancing child protection and security, and be able to engage the school community in identifying problems and solutions. Build empathy for students with disabilities, create sensitivity towards gender-responsive budgeting across school projects and programs. In order to create a gender-responsive school, the academic, social, and physical environment must be taken into account to ensure they support the needs of both boys and girls. To successfully create a gender-responsive school, stakeholders must understand the educational principles and practices that promote gender equality, which include teaching methodologies, language use, educational materials, classroom setup, student-to-student and student-to-teacher interactions, physical environments. Each of these must be gender-responsive and learner-centered. This unit will provide an overview of topics essential to creating a gender-responsive school, while later units will delve more deeply into their topics. In order to ensure that a school has gender-responsive management, administrators must continuously analyze the composition and knowledge of gender mainstreaming within school management and leadership teams. Please consider the following questions and provide your reflections where indicated. Take a moment to reflect on the composition of your school management and leadership teams by referring to the following questions and completing the table shown. Questions. What is the current understanding of gender mainstreaming among management and leadership? How is gender reflected in the following bodies of committees in school listed in the table to the right? Are there some school bodies that have less representation by women? Are there some areas that have less representation by men? Discuss why that might be and what could be done to ensure all areas are gender inclusive. How is gender reflected in the leadership of the school bodies? Are there school bodies that are dominated by female leadership? Which ones are dominated by male leadership? How can we create greater gender equity and parity? Reflect on cultural practices or norms that may be present within the communities your management and leadership comes from. How can these hinder gender equality in education? Reflect on whether there are any existing rules, regulations, and practices in the school that may or may not respond to gender equality. A gender-responsive school takes into account the specific needs of both girls and boys and has management systems, policies, and practices in place that recognize and address the gender-based needs of both girls and boys. A holistic approach to creating a gender-responsive school ensures you cover all relevant aspects of the system. Areas to examine include equality between male and female teachers, gender-responsive policies, curriculum and training, cost and infrastructure barriers, connecting with the community. What might be Some examples of equality between male and female teachers. Please write your response. Fair hiring practices, equal pay, teaching conditions, leadership positions, and equitable division of work. Family-friendly flexible schedules offered to support both genders. What might gender-responsive policies require? Please write your response. Developing and enforcing codes of conduct for teachers, staff, and students, including a zero-tolerance policy to sexual harassment and physical, verbal, or sexual abuse. Commit to encouraging boys and men, girls and women to take the full range of subjects and plan for careers in any area. Commit to fairly sharing chores amongst boys and men and girls and boys at schools and in teacher education institutions. Commit to inclusion in school, including having accessible classrooms and toilets and addressing negative attitudes towards marginalized individuals. Commit to the development of building and infrastructural norms and policies that ensure adequate and separate water, sanitation, and health amenities, including a private space where girls can wash, change sanitary pads, and access disposable bins and sanitary supplies where possible. Enact and implement policies allowing pregnant girls or girls and women with children to continue their education with accommodations. What might you take into consideration when developing the curriculum and training? Please write your response. In building new curriculum, ensure it is gender responsive, eliminating bias, and ensuring the content is inclusive of all students. Ensure teachers are trained and provide refresher courses in gender-responsive teaching methods. Cost and infrastructure concerns include. Please write your response. Ensuring budgets include investments in creating an accessible school for all students. These might be infrastructure, for example, ramps for those who are disabled, bathrooms to support proper hygiene, nutritious food, and scholarships. Why would it be important to connect with the community? Please write your response. Stakeholders are important partners in supporting boys and girls in accessing a fair and quality education. Engaging them as partners is critical. Chapter 11 in your toolkit delves deeply into stakeholder engagement. This holistic approach specifically addresses the gender responsiveness of the school. However, it can only be effectively applied if the basic standards of an ordinary school are in place. Let's explore the characteristics of an ordinary school. It is assumed that an ordinary school has in place the following: physical environment, academic environment, and social environment. The characteristics of the physical environment are adequate infrastructure, adequate classrooms, laboratories and spaces for STEM, dormitories if needed, dining facilities, library, health facilities, amenities such as water, telephone, transport, electricity and sanitation, teachers' housing, sports and recreational facilities, Favorable ecological environment. The characteristics of an academic environment are student population that matches available facilities, resources, and infrastructure, adequate teaching and learning materials, teachers' guides, textbooks, library books, science equipment and chemicals, computers, adequate qualified and motivated teachers, effective school management systems, functional professional code of conduct for teachers, teacher and student-friendly school rules and regulations, periodic in-service training for teachers. The characteristics of a social environment are adequate working conditions for teachers including salaries, housing, and benefits, organized student leadership, sport and recreational activities, operational school management committees, SMCs, Board of Governors, BOGs, parent-teacher associations, PTAs, community involvement in the school operations, inter-school visits and tours, resource mobilization through income-generating projects, grants, etc. There are many examples of successful gender-responsive schools. One such model is the Fawe Centers of Excellence model, where the academic, social, and physical environment of a school and its surrounding community take into account the specific needs of both boys and girls. Gender-responsive characteristics of Fawe Centers of Excellence are that girls have agency, school community has gender awareness, teachers use gender-responsive teaching methods, girls are encouraged to explore all subjects, particularly the STEAM subjects, that is, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. Bursaries for needy girls and boys. Cases of sexual harassment and pregnancies are drastically reduced. Dropout rates are low and completion rates are high. There is community engagement. Gender-responsive physical facilities are available. Two of the best practices used within Fawe Centers of Excellence include Mothers Educationalist Groups and Tuseme Clubs. A Mothers Educationalist Group is a group of 14 community members, including a head teacher, local leader, parent-teacher association chairperson, and a school management committee chairperson. Objectives of the Mothers Educationalist Groups include to ensure enrollment, retention, and completion of education by girls, to raise awareness of communities on cultural practices that have an adverse impact on girls' education, to promote amicable interpersonal relationships between mothers and daughters, to advocate for hygiene, nutrition, child rights with focus on girls, to provide counseling with focus on girls, to ensure availability and adequacy of hygienic sanitation facilities, especially for girls, to work with teachers in schools to eliminate incidents of child abuse and all forms of sexual harassment, to conduct income-generating activities for supporting girls' education, such as cultural events or donated craft sales. Tuseme Clubs is a project that was established by the Department of Fine and Performing Arts, DFPA, University of Dar es Salaam, in 1996 to use theater as a tool to give girls a voice to speak out and express problems, find solutions, and take initiative to solve the problems. Tuseme is Kiswahili for let us speak out, or Tilankole, which means let's talk. This project was a response to concern amongst educationalists, parents, and other social groups in Tanzania that girls' voices were not included or considered in efforts to improve girls' academic performance in secondary schools. See Unit 11 and the resource page for more detail. Please also take a moment to watch the video that shows an example of Tuseme. School-related gender-based violence (SRGBV) affects millions of children, families, and communities. It involves acts or threats of sexual, physical, or psychological violence occurring in and around schools, perpetrated because of gender norms and stereotypes, and enforced by unequal power dynamics. School management plays a central role in establishing a safe and gender-responsive learning environment. Establishing a teacher code of conduct that outlines acceptable behavior and responsibilities of teachers, especially with regard to issues of sexual harassment and gender-based violence, can help to ensure a safe and welcoming learning environment for all. See the resource page in your toolkit for UNESCO's guidelines for the design and effective use of teacher codes of conduct for supporting in reviewing, designing, and implementing a code of conduct and the appropriate mechanisms to ensure its successful implementation and regulation of teachers' conduct at the school level. Why is this important? Let's watch this brief video describing some of the impacts of school-related gender-based violence.
So when it comes to bullying, when it comes to sexual violence, when it comes to any form of violence, it makes a child's life an absolute misery.
There's a clear connection, even with what could be perceived as a simple barrier as cost of education. It's always linked to the gender aspect, the vulnerability, particularly of girls, and sexual abuse and exploitation and harassment. In almost every country where we do research on the right to education, it comes up, and it's systemic. It often responds to serious failures by the education system or the government as a whole to acknowledge it as a central issue and a barrier to both primary but particularly secondary education when adolescents are most exposed and vulnerable to sexual violence.
It negatively impacts on participation in learning. So children have to withhold and govern their behaviours and often are quite anxious about who or how to be at school when gender-based violence is going on around them.
She's not able to concentrate, or he's not able to concentrate if he knows that any slight mistake, my teacher is going to cane me. We've done pieces of studies and we found out that one of the key factors why they are getting out of school is violence against children in schools. It's contributing at around 20%. They're getting out of school because of corporal punishment, sexual abuse, neglect by parents and teachers.
When people are the victims of violence in any form, they're more likely to suffer from mental health distress.
Some of them will suffer inwardly and become withdrawn, will not want to participate in the activities happening in the school.
Those who are involved in perpetrating violence are also vulnerable. So in the long term, people who engage in forms of violence as young people are much more likely to go on and repeat those patterns of violence in adulthood. They're more likely to become people who take risks with drugs and alcohol and get caught up in other forms of antisocial behaviour.
In this activity, we will watch the first half of this short video, paying particular attention to example 1 with Amir and example 3 with Kaya. Following the video, you will share what could be done as a school administrator or teacher to change or resolve the problems faced by Amir and Kaya. Type in the box what you, as an administrator or teacher, could do to change or resolve the problem of bullying experienced by Amir and Kaya.
Amir is 10 and attends school in the Middle East. Instead of playing sports like the other boys, he prefers acting and writing poetry. Some of the boys laugh at him, telling him he's skinny and calling him a sissy. Things get worse when one of them picks on him. Soon, everyone is picking on him. Amir's teacher tells him it's a normal part of growing up. His father tells him to grow up and be a man. Around the world, 1 out of every 3 students is bullied by their peers. In many regions, physical bullying is the most common type of bullying, with 16% of bullied children saying they have been hit, kicked, shoved around, or locked in rooms. Far away, in Europe, 13-year-old Rani is experiencing a different kind of bullying. She recently moved there from Asia with her family. It feels as if her world has been turned upside down. School is taught in a language she doesn't understand, and she hasn't made any friends. Things can't get any worse until someone posts a hurtful text about her on social media, telling her to go back to her own country. The cyberbullying gets worse. Ethnicity, nationality, or color is the second most common reason for bullying. The most common reason is physical appearance. 16-year-old Kaya in Southern Africa is bullied for the way she looks every day. Her parents are poor and can't afford to buy her shoes or a new uniform. Every day she walks kilometers to get to school. It's not easy, but her dream of being a doctor helps her to stay motivated. Lately, some of the boys from her school have been making life difficult. They wait for her along the path, crowding around her and making rude comments about the way she looks. When she tells them to leave her alone, they just laugh. Over 15% of bullied students say they were made fun of because of how their face or body looks. Many students, especially girls, experience violence based on their gender in and around school. As bullying continues, many victims don't know who to turn to and become isolated and depressed. They find it difficult to concentrate during lessons and start missing classes or drop out of school altogether. 42% feel like an outsider at school. 63% feel anxious for tests, even if they are well prepared and score lower than their peers. 45% of them give up on their dreams to pursue formal education after school. Countries cannot achieve inclusive and equitable quality education for all if learners are being bullied at school. There is a way to change this. We can stop bullying by adopting a whole education approach where teachers, principals, administrative staff, students and parents all play a role in promoting a safe and supportive school environment. We need to ensure that all students, whether they are bullied or see others being bullied, understand the nature and consequences of bullying and know how to report it and respond to it. Teachers and other school staff need to understand what bullying is and step in or act every time bullying happens. Schools and classroom environments need to be positive spaces where learners are not just physically safe but emotionally safe too, where classes are well managed and disciplined, and teachers and students enjoy healthy relationships. Support must be put in place for those who are affected. We all have a role to play to ensure a learning environment where Amir feels accepted by his peers, where Rani's classmates respect diversity, and where Kaya can pursue her dream to become a doctor. Let's stand together against bullying in school.
Creating inclusive schools for students with disabilities. School management holds the primary responsibility for ensuring inclusive schools and infrastructure, and it is important to include everyone. Inclusive education, which fully engages all children in quality education, including children with various types of disabilities or other learning challenges, has proven particularly effective in helping all children to create inclusive societies that value the contributions of all its members. Children with disabilities often face intersecting forms of discrimination. For example, girls with disabilities face both gender discrimination and discrimination due to their disability. These students are even more vulnerable to bullying, harassment, and abuse. A proactive school management and leadership is key in the establishment of an inclusive school. Students with disabilities face stigma and discrimination, in part because people make false assumptions or are unfamiliar with how to provide the necessary support. The following activity can be used with students and teachers to more deeply empathize with the challenges that students with disabilities face so that everyone can participate in creating inclusive schools. In this activity, either close your eyes or imagine you are visually impaired, or hold one arm behind your back and imagine you have lost use of one of your arms. Take a few seconds to pick what you will do. Are you ready? I am going to talk to you through part of day, and I want you to imagine what it would be like for you if you were visually impaired or not able to use one of your arms. Now imagine you are a student getting ready for school. You wake up and get dressed. What is different for you since you cannot see well, or because you cannot use one arm? What is the same? You eat breakfast and clear your dishes. Consider what you would need help with. Who would you ask for help? You make your way to the washroom and brush your teeth. What is different for you? What is the same? You collect your school books and supplies in a backpack and walk to school. Consider what is challenging about these tasks because of your disability. What is the same? What is different? Please fill in your responses to the following prompts in the boxes below. What were some of the challenges you faced during this short scenario? What was unchanged? What tasks would have been made easier with assistance? What kind of assistance would have been useful? Why are people mean to other people who have disabilities? How do you think it makes them feel? What do we lose out on as a community when we exclude people with disabilities? How can we make our classroom or schools more inclusive and supportive for everyone? A school's budget reflects the allocation of resources and its work plan. Gender-responsive budgeting consists of procedures and tools aimed at ensuring that resources are allocated and used in ways that contribute towards mitigating gender inequalities and thus increasing prospects and opportunities for gender equality and empowerment. UNESCO 2015. As a gender-responsive school, school administrators should review existing budgets and/or create new budgets with gender in mind. However, it is essential to be aware that gender-responsive budgeting is not about creating separate budgets for girls or women. Some of the questions that can be useful in performing a gender-responsive budget analysis include the following. Does the school have a policy that supports gender budgeting? Who has a voice in budgeting, development, and decisions? Who else should be included to have diverse perspectives at the table? How does the current budgeting practice affect girls and boys and female and male teachers? Is there a gender-specific budget line? Why or why not? What is the total fund in the budget for gender issues? What funds are available for gender equity and training programs? What funds are available for designing, monitoring, and evaluating efforts to make the school more gender responsive? What needs to change in the budget to ensure it supports a gender responsive school? Please answer these questions and upload your responses before moving on to the next unit. Please upload your responses to the gender responsive budget analysis questions here. Additional resources. Here are some useful resources you can explore to learn more about some of the topics covered in this unit. Up next, teachers. Up next, administrators.